Donald Trump is returning to the White House after an election campaign that can only be described as incredible. Not only did Donald Trump come back to claim all 7 swing states in this election, he won the popular vote too. Counting is still underway, but at this stage it shows around 73 million people voted for Donald Trump to come back. His supporters are celebrating, and it appears as though President Joe Biden isn't all that mad about Donald Trump's win. He congratulated the president-elect on his victory with a big smile on his face. There it is. Look at that grin, ear to ear. People online are reacting to these shots of the president. Daily Wire co-founder Ben Shapiro posted on X, "Joe Biden is the happiest man in America today." While speaking at the White House, the president told Americans to bring down the temperature, a message that comes around a week after he called millions of voters garbage.
Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature.
It's rare that we hear from the president, so when we do, he gets watched very closely. And although Kamala Harris's team told Joe Biden not to go anywhere near her in the final weeks of the campaign, the president still managed to cause her campaign massive headaches with rogue and bizarre comments for the cameras, prompting speculation that he's still bitter about being forced out of the race, and so is Jill Biden, who opted to wear GOP red when she cast her vote. Now, the Democrats have some desperate soul-searching to do after kicking out Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris, well, she failed to get enough votes. They are looking for someone to blame. There are reports today that everyone from George Clooney to Nancy Pelosi are in the firing line as they come to terms with the party's disastrous result. You'd remember Hollywood star George Clooney wrote an op-ed in the New York Times calling for Joe Biden to step out of the race. Well, now lefties are posting their rage about Trump's win on social media, saying, "George Clooney, this is all your fault."
He was nothing more than a mouthpiece for Obama. But, I agree with what everyone has said. But the amazing thing to me is here you've got an actor, who's going out there and writing this op-ed. The president needs to step down. I think he's like a little over his skis on that one.
George Clooney, it's unfair he's taking his criticism. I
thought he's a good friend. He's a good friend, Harold.
The problem is, Democrats, we were not aligned with the priorities of the country.
Celebrities are also having a meltdown over Donald Trump's victory. Rapper Cardi B shared a photo of herself reacting on social media with the classy caption, "I hate y'all bad." British author Philip Pullman posted on X, "Goodbye America, it was nice knowing you." And actor John Cusack wrote, "The fact that the country would choose to destroy itself by voting in a convicted felon, rapist and Nazi is a sign of deep nihilism." How very measured of all of them. So gracious in defeat. Unfortunately for celebrities, as important as they think they might be, this election has shown that their endorsements don't work. People don't want to be lectured on how to think, what to believe, and who to vote for. And the problem with this elite, woke, left echo chamber is it seems they're so caught up in their rage and their emotions, they can't reflect clearly. Many of them are asking the wrong questions. How could people vote for Trump? How could they? Instead of asking why Americans elected him. All the answers are in the questions. Celebrities need to get over themselves and wake up to see how the majority of Americans are living. They voted for change this week, and that is what they're going to get in a couple of months' time. Donald Trump has announced who he's chosen to be his chief of staff when he takes office in January.
Susie Wiles is the campaign chair for Donald Trump from 2016, 2020 and 2024. She's now going to become the first female chief of staff in US history. So it's notable. This is the first announcement from Donald Trump. He released a statement saying Susie is tough, smart, innovative and is tirelessly to make America great again. We're expecting a lot of announcements about Donald Trump's administration picks. There's a lot of fighting in DC already over who wants those top jobs in this administration as they come to terms with the fact they're here with such a decisive win. That's exactly what Democrats are now coming to terms with.
Unheard Washington, D.C. correspondent Emily Jashinsky joined Power Hour for her take on how Donald Trump ran such a successful election campaign and what's next for Kamala Harris. Emily, great to speak with you. What an incredible result for Donald Trump. What do you put it down to?
Yeah. Well, he ended up actually just running up the scoreboard with demographics people expected him to do a little bit better with one exception, that is. I'll get to that in just a second. But really with young men, men in general, Hispanic men, he was able to just run up the scoreboard. So in the case for some of the suburban areas, he did better in some of the suburban areas he wasn't expected to. He did slightly worse in some of the suburban areas, but it didn't matter because he was gaining so much with different voters, and he was continuing to gain with rural voters. So the counterbalance that Democrats had hoped on, which was this wave of suburban women turning out to reject Donald Trump, did not materialize. And that's ultimately how their math fell apart.
And it shows that the polls are wrong once again. They really underestimated the amount of Trump supporters that are out there.
It's so crazy because it was one of those situations where, like Nate Silver was saying, we know that there is going to be a polling error. We just don't know which direction it's going to be in, which makes you wonder, like, how helpful are these polls to begin with?
And yeah, ignore them. That's better advice.
Yeah, seriously. So what happened is that it was a polling error entirely in Trump's direction. So some pundits were saying this polling error is going to go totally for Kamala. She is going to be the one who sweeps all the swing states. And what happened is that it was a polling error on behalf of Trump. He swept almost all of the battleground states and to margins that people didn't even expect, and brought Senate candidates with him, did better in blue states like New Jersey and Maryland. I mean, it was just a rout.
Watching some of the media coverage yesterday, I think this is one of my favourites from CNN and their journalists just in shock over how badly the Democrats were performing.
You asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not.
Emily, why were they so shocked?
Yeah, because there was this narrative, and I heard Democratic consultants say this, that they were seeing women in focus groups show up who were going to vote against their husbands. And they ran an ad. They put about $30,000, a ton of money, but one group put $30,000 behind this ad, now infamous, voiced by Julia Roberts, telling women the last place. They have the right to choose is in the ballot box, and implying, they don't have to vote for Trump if their husbands are voting for Trump. They can vote for Kamala Harris. That is what Democrats expected to see in suburban Atlanta and suburban Milwaukee, places like that, suburban Philadelphia. And we did see in suburban Milwaukee and suburban Atlanta, there were some counties that went a little bit more Dem than they had before, but only like +1 or +2 points, not +5, not +7, in ways that Democrats were counting on to give Kamala a victory. That's the only way they could have done it.
We have heard from Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's the very start of her concession speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Look, to give her credit, that would be such an incredibly hard thing to do, but watching it, it just feels like she didn't quite want to say the words out loud, and it comes after refusing to speak last night.
Yeah, she did. And she initially had that set of remarks scheduled for 2 hours later, all the way at 6 p.m., which here in the States is after you'd be able to get on the 6 o'clock news, the 5 o'clock news. And people were very confused. And actually, some people were pretty upset because even when Hillary Clinton spoke at, I think it was noon in 2016, people were upset about that. It's sort of seen as a Democratic norm that you speak as early as you possibly can in order to go about the peaceful transition of power, which was probably her biggest applause line of that entire speech. She said, when we lose, we do it peacefully. And that was obviously a dig at Donald Trump in 2020. So it was interesting, as Kamala Harris wanted to sort of claim the high ground, she waited pretty late into the day to go ahead and make her remarks. And a lot of people on her side, including pundits on places like CNN and MSNBC, are now pointing fingers at their fellow countrymen and really sort of smearing people as bigots, sexists, racists for choosing Donald Trump instead of Kamala Harris. So there's a lot of cope going on.